The broadcast is live. Fantastic. Hello, everybody. I appreciate you being here. It's a great pleasure to have Ed Diehl here with me. He's an Oregon legislature serving in the 17th District of the Oregon House of Representatives. Ed earned his bachelor's and master's degrees from Stanford University in mechanical engineering, real disciplines, and co-founded the engineering company Concept Solution. Concept Systems, sorry. And it's the asset management company Wave 7. It is a Republican serving his first year as a state representative, and he's already in the news regarding gender-affirming legislation in Oregon. So thank you for being with me here, Ed. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Peter. Yeah, it's an honor.
So tell me, what is an Oregon legislature? What do you do all day? What does that look like? Like, you wake up and what happens?
Well, we're a citizen legislature, first off. So it's, in theory, it's a part-time gig. So we have a long session every odd year, which goes starts in January and ends in June. And then we have a short session every even year, which is just about 4 weeks, I think it is. So we just finished our long session. So it is a mad dash to review thousands of bills that come across. So my typical day, it varies through the cycle, but I'm in several committees: healthcare, behavioral health committee, economic development and small business, joint ways and means human services, and then I was on a subcommittee for the semiconductor to try and get CHIPS funding to Oregon. So a typical day would be probably 3 of those committees, and then reviewing bills and preparing for questions to have during committee.
And you read, do you read those bills, or does someone read them for you and summarize them?
So my wife works with me in the legislature. She's my chief of staff.
Okay.
And we work together at our business
years.
So we work together. We know each other really well. So between the two of us, every bill that we heard in committee or voted on the House floor, we read.
Oh, wow.
That was real important to me, and that's something I committed to.
Yeah.
There's sometimes there's gotcha things in those bills, and I wanted to read them myself to make sure we didn't miss anything.
See, I think that's so fantastic. I've been pounding on this thing for years. I think one of the reasons that we're in this current crisis is that people have been bamboozled by words, particularly the words equity and equality. And Biden was asked the difference in his second debate with Trump. He didn't know the difference. This is not, I just want to make crystal clear, this is not a Republican, Democrat thing, liberal, conservative things. This has literally nothing to do with that. This has to do with how people have been hoodwinked by words. Bernie Sanders was on Bill Maher. He didn't know the difference between equity and equality. And if you go to his page, it's like one of his planks. It's just funny. Well, there you are taking the time to read these bills. And I think that I laud you for doing that. And I think it's your duty for doing that. And I think it's fantastic. And so often people are so preoccupied with status or political power or what have you that they don't take the due diligence to do the basic things. So thank you for serving the people of Oregon. I appreciate that.
Thank you. Yeah, it turned out to be a lot of work.
I'm sure. I'm sure. And the key is, I just want to say for people listening, the key is, it doesn't matter what your disagreement is or what my disagreement is. We agree on how we're going to solve our disagreements. We're going to solve our disagreements democratically. We're not going to rip down statues. I'm not going to come to your house. You're not going to come to my house, to firebomb and whatever. Like, we live in a democracy, and there are ways to solve and adjudicate issues. And if anybody has a problem with anything you're saying or anything I'm saying, we have mechanisms in place so that we can deal with those disagreements civilly and without violence, et cetera. I feel idiotic. It's terrible even for me having to say that, but that's the situation in which we find ourselves.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's the segue into what I wanted to speak to you about today.
Yeah.
Bill 2002. It expands funding and access for gender transition. The bill recently passed the Oregon legislature. Only one Republican representative, vetoed that bill, and it was not you. So my question to you is, first, why don't you and other Republicans support the bill? And second, tell me about the amendment you tried to add.
Yeah, so all the Republicans but one voted against this bill, and every Democrat voted for it. But the bill had two elements. It's also, and this is part of the way they do this. They take an issue that is pretty popular in Oregon, which is abortion.
Right.
So this was an abortion expansion bill, kind of a response to Roe v. Wade. So that was a big chunk of the bill. And then, oh, by the way, we're going to put in statute that quote unquote gender affirming care has to be provided through the Oregon Health Plan and with private insurance.
Right.
And we're going to specifically spell out certain things, cosmetic things that have to be part of that care. And so that was tagged on to what was an abortion bill. The other thing it did is it protected doctors. It protects doctors from losing their malpractice insurance simply for providing gender affirming care.
Okay, can I pause you right there?
Yeah. I hate that term, by the way.
I hate it. I can't stand it. That's the other reason people have been bamboozled. Reed and I were holding signs. You know, we do those street epistemology exercises where we put the lines of tape on the sidewalk, and we usually put some kind of question there to have people come over. And one was I can't remember the exact thing. Do you remember it, Reed? Like gender affirming care should be legal something, and people would walk by and they would say gender affirming care is health care. Gender affirm, it's not healthcare.
That's Rachel Levine spewing. It's like a dogma. It's not based on anything.
Yeah, and it's catchy for people. Oh, gender affirm. We want to affirm. We want to. Okay, so
I prefer like sex trait modifications. Another term that we use, like the SAFE Act, which I introduced into the legislature. It didn't go anywhere, but it's called sex alteration procedures.
Even that is not, because you can't change your sex.
No, you can't.
You can, I guess you can. Would you call it sex alteration?
That the words that the SAFE Act used was sex alteration procedures. But
I guess you could kind of alter it. I guess.
Yeah, sex trait modification is another
trait modification is a good one.
Yeah, Lior,
that's good.
Spear has been using that. I saw somebody else use that.
So why? So two questions. One, why do you think that this is such a partisan issue?
You know, it is in the legislature, but it's not in real life.
Yeah.
I heard from a lot of Democrats, a lot of feminists, transsexuals, gays and lesbians. I mean, especially gays and lesbians, I would add, who see this for what it is, and it's nonsense. So, but in the legislature, it is very partisan, and I think part of that is because of the people that are supporting them. A lot of people got in with on the Democrat side, got in with funding from these organizations that are really touting this and really pushing it hard. And so this was a signature bill in Oregon. This was one of those bills that had to go through.
Yeah. So I guess my question to you is, do you think the people who voted for this, like, were they just beholden to platitudes like, oh, it's better to have a dead kid or a trans kid than a dead kid? Or do you think that they actually they grok, like they get it? Like we were talking about putting out videos, but we definitely decided against it because we didn't want to be sued. And we didn't want to lose our social media accounts. I mean, we were thinking about putting out video. There are videos out there that you can see of these procedures. I mean, they're just ghastly.
No, I've seen some of them. OHSU is one of the leaders in this. And I think they superficially know what's going on and have really not investigated in depth the research. And I found a lot of doctors in particular don't really base their practices on evidence. You know, we talk about a systematic review of evidence. That's not going on here at all when it comes to this issue.
Do you know the Republican who voted with the Democrats?
Yes, Representative Conrad, Charlie Conrad.
Why did he do that? What was his reasoning?
He, well, first off, he's pro-choice. So he
Amazing.
didn't have an issue with the abortion elements.
Yeah.
And what he said is he talked to a few people and basically decided that these procedures, puberty blockers, hormone treatments, were okay and medically necessary in some cases.
Wow.
And so he convinced himself of that, is my understanding. And the way he presents it is he did some more research, because he voted no in committee and then voted yes on the floor.
Yeah, interesting. So again, I'm not very familiar with the Oregon legislature, and I moved out of Oregon because of Ted Wheeler. But and Ted, the system that Ted Wheeler has created, in his case, it actually is systemic.
Well,
so yeah, I just didn't want to give them my tax money anymore. So okay, so can people come and give testimony? Like, could you or someone else ask detransitioners to come and testify about their experiences?
Yes, we did. So the way it works, a bill won't be heard unless really the Speaker of the House wants that bill to be heard. So they work in coordination with the committee chair. So, and then the committee chair determines how long the hearing will be, kind of the structure of the hearing. So our committee chair, Rob Noss, who is a big supporter of this bill, he scheduled a long hearing for House Bill 2002. I think it was 5 hours. I think we had, and we were the time was split up, but it was nobody had the chance to really do a deep drill with questions, and
Right.
the testimony was very short. But yeah, I had two detransitioners testify. I had Dr. Julia Mason with SEGM
Right.
testify. We had some therapists testify.
Several
other doctors. Yeah.
No, I'm sorry to interrupt you. So you did have somebody who detransitioned testify, or no?
Two people who've detransitioned.
And what was? Can I ask you about their testimony?
Yeah. So first off, Camille Kiefel is a young woman that transitioned in I think it was her early 20s. She had a double mastectomy, and then later regretted it and determined that what was going on, she was suffering from some mental health issues and physical health issues. And so when she fixed those things, she realized she made a terrible mistake. And so she's been outspoken about that. I think she actually has a lawsuit going in Oregon over how she was treated by her therapists and her doctors. Then the other one was Forrest or Frank Smith. Now, Forrest provided a detailed written testimony, and his story was just horrific. If I can take a minute to
100%, please.
So he was kind of estranged from his family, was living in Portland in some bad situations, suffering from some sexual abuse. I believe he was taking meth. He was addicted to meth. Eventually he gets connected so he's through this process, he's identifying as transgender, as a woman.
Yeah.
He ends up getting with some therapists, two different therapists end up referring him to OHSU,
of course,
for surgery. And I read, some of the stuff they used to justify this as well. When he was a kid, he liked to play dress up with his sister. Well, that doesn't make you a girl.
Right.
Sorry.
How old was he when he transitioned?
He was also in his early 20s.
Okay. So
these were not, they were not minors when this happened.
Yeah. So I just want to explore a couple of things with you, and then I want to get back to the Charlie Conrad thing, because I think it's interesting. So I think at this point, when people are talking about national divorces and they're talking about, things that were I'm 50, I'll be 57 this month, things that were utterly unfathomable to me growing up. I think some kind of compromise is necessary. And I don't know, maybe this is a point of disagreement among us. I don't know. I am adamantly opposed to any form of transition under 18. But I think there has to be some kind of a cutoff where we allow people to have sovereignty over their own bodies. However, that being said, that doesn't mean the state has to pay for it, right? That doesn't mean that the Oregon tax or any taxpayer for that matter has to pay for it. I think so. So we got a bunch of issues going on here. We have the under 18 thing, which I am adamantly opposed to, vehemently opposed to it. Then we have the 18 and over, which at that point, I mean, I'm sorry for those people. They had mental health issues, et cetera. That we need to think about the system and the whole idea of gender, or affirming someone's gender. Yeah. And then we have who pays for it if it's going to be legal for people above 18. So do you see the problem in that way with those three? Okay.
No, I do. And I think you and I are in a lot of agreement there. I am opposed to, 18 may be the right age. There's good arguments that it should be maybe closer to 21, but let's say 18. Under 18, this should not be going on.
Correct.
Absolutely not be going on. I mean, providing puberty blockers to a child, and I've heard horror stories about this, as you have. And I introduced a bill actually that would prohibit these procedures on minors.
Thank you for doing that. Thank you.
It didn't go anywhere. It never got a hearing. But I'm going to continue to introduce it.
Thank you.
But older than that, I agree with you. If this is a decision you want to make and you're willing to pay for it, I don't want to see Medicaid pay for it. I don't want to see private health insurance pay for it. But if it's a decision you want to make, but I would ask that it better be based on some kind of evidence. I mean, we're kidding people now if we're telling them that we can turn a man into a woman. That's not going to happen. They're going to struggle with acceptance because it's never going to be quite right. And don't expect me to go along with it. Don't expect me to think you're a woman because you think you're a woman.
Right, well, that's what they're
things.
Every time the taxpayer is being asked to do that, that's what they're asking us to do, is to go along with it. So there is, having dominion over your own body, excuse me, when you're an adult, bodily autonomy and sovereignty, all down for that. And then there's the other question of payment and how we construct systems that don't affirm somebody's gender or what their personal feelings are. And we know that by and large, those can be capricious. I want to go back to something you said, because I remember reading something that you wrote or that was written in Oregon Capitol Chronicle. So even though you were strongly against that bill that Charlie Conrad wrote, you didn't have any harsh words for Conrad. In fact, you said that you respect him and there's no expectation that representatives will toe the party line. So I guess I wanted to ask, and I respect the fact that you did that, because I think it's okay to, we don't have to have perfect ideological congruity with everybody. In fact, the world is far more interesting if we don't, but, and we get more stuff done if we don't, because we can hash our differences out through dialogue. But is it difficult to promote respect for ideological diversity within the party, given the current atmosphere of political polarization?
It's tough. There's definitely some. Well, what I found is in the Republican Party in Oregon anyway, we're not told how to vote. We're asked how we're going to vote. So there can be a strategy. But I was never once told how to vote. And Charlie's wrong. He's wrong. In fact, I just texted him an hour ago. I texted him a study that I want him to read.
Oh, okay, good.
But I do have respect for him. He's a thoughtful guy. He's reached the wrong conclusion here, and I hope that he changes heart at some point. But I like the fact that we need to be having these discussions out in the open.
Yeah.
The process, the legislative process, is a little bit frustrating on that, because it was very difficult to have an open public debate and discussion on this issue. When you carve everybody into 3-minute chunks, there's not much of an opportunity for dialogue between the committee people and the experts who are testifying. Our questions were very limited.
Yeah.
And I got cut off. If you watch the,
Yeah, no, I didn't watch it. I'm sorry. So I'm already thinking that the representatives or the experts who came through, I mean, that's part of the problem with the nastiness of this whole thing. These people themselves could be demagogues or ideologues or gender studies professors, or like that guy with the pink hair from OHSU who mutilates all these children. So it's odd that the left and the right have different kinds of issues. I think one of the issues on the right is a genuine distrust of expertise when we actually need experts. But the problem is the left has created this situation by making institutions in which people don't rise on the basis of their own merit. And they've created institutions that have been ideologically captured and really echo chambers. And so I'd be instantly suspect of any expert testimony on this. And so, yeah, I think it's just so important that, so that's one issue. And the other issue is I just think it's so important that the way, like you texted him, and there's a method for solving our problems that I think a lot of people, particularly younger people who have been indoctrinated by people in college, have lost sight of that. We have a history in this country of speaking to each other people with whom we disagree, and not having that escalate. And, nobody wants to live in Iraq. And this one issue, my buddy Michael Schellenberger says, this is like extra crazy. There's like crazy, and then this is extra crazy.
Well, I found it difficult to have the way the process worked is broken, in my opinion. The way the committees, there was no chance to do a real deep public dialogue and in depth. Everybody got a chance to state their opinion. Yeah. And the people on the committee had pretty much made up their mind. I'd say except for one guy, maybe Rep. Conrad was on the fence with it, but before the committee hearings even started.
So
I don't know how much committee people actually did research on the issue in advance.
Yeah, which is unfortunate given the gravity and what's at stake, particularly for children. But so the Oregon Republicans had a 6-week walkout from the Senate. Like
on the Senate side.
Yeah, tell me about that. What's up with that?
So they were upset about a number of things. Part of it was the process. There were a number of procedural things on the Senate side that they did not like, that Senate President Wagner, the way he was running things. Then there was House Bill 2002, an atrocious bill. There was House Bill 2005, which was a gun attack, a Second Amendment attack, in my view. So that bill was really opposed by Republicans. And then there were a number of other bills. One bill, Senate Joint Resolution, I think it was 33, which would have sent to the voters a constitutional amendment to have gender identity and related health care a right in our Constitution.
Yeah, we need to talk about that. Okay.
So when we started really pushing back on House Bill 2002, they introduced this joint resolution, just kind of doubling down on it. I want to make sure I got that. Yeah, SJR 33. And again, they bundle it with something that everybody can agree with. Hey, our Constitution has archaic language about marriages between man and a woman. Well, that's right. Federally unconstitutional. That language can be pulled. So that the bill says we're going to pull that. Everybody talked about it as just affirming gay marriage, but no, it's got gender identity or related health decisions in there.
Okay, so we need
those bills. Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead and interrupt you. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So those bills were presented. They were egregious, and because the Senate didn't like those and didn't like the process that was going on in the Senate, they decided to walk out, and it was the longest walkout that we've ever had.
Yeah, I remember reading that. Yeah. So I want to talk about that. I just talked about that with James Lindsay before, and I don't know if you know who James Lindsay is, but so he and I are on the same page about this. He's my writing partner.
Okay.
So I think so much confusion comes down, particularly when you look at like, the celebrity Twitter or people who don't really take the time to read the bills or to really dig deep beyond the superficial language.
Yeah.
And so I'll state my position, and I think this is very similar, if not identical, to Ron DeSantis's position. He's constantly attacked for something he doesn't believe. So and I want you to comment on this. So my position is that anybody can live any kind of type of life they want. If once you're 18, if you're gay and you want to be with a guy, like that's nobody's stopping you. If you're a woman and you feel you're a lesbian or you are a lesbian, you should do what. That's great. Do your own thing. And you should be afforded all the rights of society. So you shouldn't be discriminated against based upon the people you love. But that's not the misunderstanding is that, the quote unquote, don't say gay bill, like that has nothing to do with it. We're talking about a very specific ideology. We're talking about gender ideology. We're talking about the way that's weaved its way into our institutions and what burdens it places on other people. So I wanted to comment. I wanted to ask you, because I don't know, I've never this is the first time we've ever spoken, but you don't harbor, I don't think you don't harbor any animus against gay people. You don't hate gay people. You're talking about the ideology, gender ideology,
which is completely different. Yes, I'm talking about gender ideology, and it is different. If someone is attracted to whoever, I can understand that. That's a feeling you're attracted. But if you're telling me that you are a man trapped in a woman's body, how do you know that? What's a man feel like? I don't even know what a man feels like. I know what Ed feels like. Yeah. But that's a totally different thing. And so, yeah, I have no animosity, and there's no problem for me with gay marriage. And if you're an adult, two consenting adults, I don't have an issue with it.
Yeah. So I think that your position and others like DeSantis, I don't know if it's an intentional mischaracterization of the things you believe. I don't know if they think they're upset because you're Christian or I don't know what it is, but it's either dishonest, like they're either actually overtly lying about the things you believe, or they just simply don't understand it. I don't know. Like I see that guy, the actor, what's his name? Ron Perlman. He's constantly freaking out about this stuff, but he's freaking out because he's upset about positions that people don't even hold. I mean, maybe the fringe of the fringe of the fringe hold these positions, but like no mainstream. No DeSantis, I was just talking to my buddy Dave Rubin about this. DeSantis simply does not hold the positions people are criticizing him for. So I think it's again, I don't know if it's dishonesty. I don't know if it's just ignorance, but I just wanted to give you an opportunity to say, like, you don't hate gay people. Like you just said you're for gay marriage. So you're not. Your opposition to this, Jordan Peterson and Gad Saad have testified in Canada that, you can refer to yourself by any pronoun you want. You can think you're a zebra. There's nothing anybody can do about it. I mean, you're free to have any conception of self that you want to have. That's part of cognitive liberty. But the idea that you would impose that on someone else to take away their cognitive liberty to how they think about you, which basically to force them to lie socially. That's the problem. So
I wonder now if their objectives are different. They're not looking for equality, in the way that we would define it, equality of opportunity.
Correct.
They want the state to compel certain outcomes. Right?
Yeah, it's very interesting. They want the state. The very people who want to tear down the state, defund the police, the very people who want to disrupt the system are the same people who want to use the system to impose their value system on everybody else. It's a good thing that they don't adhere to the law of non-contradiction, or contradictions don't bother them, or logic or reason. They've thrown that out the window too. So it makes it very convenient to pick and choose what you want the state to do. Okay, so a few other things. So you're in your first year as a state representative, which is fascinating to me. I've actually thought about political office, but then I thought I'd be assassinated. But what have you learned about the political system so far, and what inspired you to enter politics? So what inspired you, and what have you learned?
Yeah. So like you said before, I'm an engineer. I spent my career in technology and business. I voted and I complained. That was my extent of politics. But what happened, I sold my business about 4 years ago and started doing more community service and support work in my area. And I serve East Salem through the San Am Canyon up through Detroit and Idana. And so what happened recently, we had our response to COVID, which I was not happy with. The shutdowns, extended shutdowns of businesses, the school closures, a lot of the mandates, the way Oregon responded to it, I was really opposed to. And then we had wildfires.
Oh yeah, that was terrible. God, that was the worst.
We lost in 2020. We lost 700 homes in my district. Just devastated the canyon. So
yeah,
and I looked at that, and this did not have to happen.
Right.
For one, our governor let a fire burn in a wilderness area without putting it out.
Right. Our governor is basically a gender studies scholar, but please continue.
Yeah. And then we had 30 years at least of just gross neglect and mismanagement of our forests. We're stewards of this land. We need to manage it. That means harvest sustainably and responsibly, eliminate the fuels in our forests. So when you neglect the forests and let wildfires burn, guess what happens? Right. You destroyed a lot of lives, and we lost lives in that fire. So I went through that, and then they also at the same time they're redistricted. So it was a new district. It had no current state representative living in it. And when I found I was in it, and I thought I could make better decisions than I was seeing coming out of our state's leadership, I decided to give it a shot. And I really figured if I didn't try, I regret it later.
No, I think that's the beauty of democracy, that ordinary people like you and me can participate. I am worried. I don't want to go down the rabbit hole, but I am worried at some point. Maybe I'll have you back on and talk about it. I am worried about people running for offices at higher levels, and you need a lot of money to do that. When I was a kid, and I grew up in Massachusetts, there used to be on the ballot a box to give $1. My dad used to always check it for people who didn't have enough money who wanted to run. And he used to tell me, and I completely see the wisdom in this now, how important that is. But I think it's great that normal people, ordinary people can run. I mean, that's what that's what makes this country great, right?
And that's what a citizen legislature is all about. And so, yeah, I hope that part of me wants to be an example. Hey, if you want to change this country, we focus so much on what's going on nationally.
Yeah.
If you want to fix this country, start in your circle of influence. Start with your school. Run for school board.
100%.
Get on your city council.
100%.
Get involved in your county. So that's the action that we need to take. And a lot of people have ignored what's going on locally, thinking, somebody else is going to handle it. Well, you're not happy with our schools? Get involved.
Yeah, I really like some police departments have said, if you don't like the way that the police do things, why don't you join the police department? Why don't you become involved? Why don't you take some responsibility to be the change you want to see? Okay, so Rita's going to play a clip of your amendment proposal, and I just want people to see this.
2002 dated March 27, 2023. Representative Diehl, would you like to say a little bit about your amendment?
Yes, thank you. The -11 basically treats detransition treatments the same and puts them on equal footing as gender-affirming treatments. The whole idea is it requires insurance to cover and treat detransitioners with the same care and compassion that we treat gender-affirming folks. The -11 also includes a change to the malpractice insurance statute of limitations from 5 to 10 years for doctors practicing gender-affirming treatments. And it also sets up a advisory council that would develop a document outlining the risks associated with transition. And that document would be included in the informed consent process. So here's where I'm at with this thing, Chair. I mean, I know this bill is going to pass. Every legislator in this building on the Democratic side has signed on to this bill. And a major element of 2002 is mandating health insurance coverage for gender-affirming treatment. The problem is, and I've talked to lots of parents, therapists, doctors, and detransitioners. It is indisputable that some youth are being harmed in our process. We are not following adequate assessment processes, and we're catching kids in.
Okay, so this is super interesting. Part of the problem. So you're right. We know for a fact. I mean, that's why we know this is a fact. The question is, what is that number? And we know that the number is greater than 1, right? We know that.
The best studies we have 10 to 30%.
Okay, so
transition or desist. They may start hormone treatment, for example, and after a few months stop.
Yeah.
10
So
to 30%.
Okay, so I think Wesley Yang tweeted out that I commented on. Even if the number is 5 to 10, which it is not, but even if it were 5 to 10, this is the greatest scandal, medical scandal in history.
It is. We are doing permanent, life-altering modifications to young kids,
to children. That's what we're doing. We're mutilating the genitals of children.
Yep. And how do we know? How do they know that they're ready for it? Well, we listen to the child and let the child tell us. It's ridiculous. I wouldn't let my child, decide what's for dinner.
Yeah, I was going to say, how do we know that the child is ready for another, his 8th scoop of ice cream because we listen to their lived experience? I mean, nobody does that. Nobody uses the listen to the child for virtually anything else, unless it's something, vapid, like which cartoon do you want to watch, when they've already bought into a system in the first place.
Yeah.
So yeah, go ahead.
And we're committing them to lifelong medical care. I think Johns Hopkins a few years ago did a study, $750,000 of just related to support. $10,000 a year on medications and antivirals or antibiotics and things like that. About $750,000 a year. I'm sure it's for your lifetime. I'm sure it's a lot more than that at this point.
So let me. So I'll tell you what I think, and I think this may be a point of disagreement among us. I'm not sure. I think every one of the people who did this should be imprisoned. I think beyond them being imprisoned, every single person at OHSU and other places who is complicit in this ghastliness with children, explicitly with children. Every single person who did this should be held criminally responsible and jailed. Everyone, administrators, everybody who is responsible for this horror. That's my opinion.
Yeah,
what do you think?
I mean, I can understand why you'd feel that way. That's not my goal. My goal is to get them out of business. I don't want them doing this.
That's a good first start.
Yeah.
I just think that there has to be some kind of I know that would never pass. It's politically not feasible, but there has to be some kind of accountability when people do sinister things.
I do think that they need to be held responsible when they do harm a child, and they should be able to get their butts sued big time.
Yeah, I mean,
but OHSU is a pseudo public institution and is protected in some ways from lawsuits.
Well, I mean, you can't even slap a child's wrist without getting some kind of a sanction. I mean, like when people harm a child in any context, you can't even leave a dog in the car. I was in a few months ago. It was great weather. I left my dog and went into the thing, and this woman went into the store, and this woman came out saying, we've been trying to contact you. You can't do this. We're going to call the police. And she was one of these ultra left woke people. And I said, what do you mean call them? You've defunded the police. What are you going to call them? What are you talking about? You can't even do simple things like that with. It's just. This is so, I don't know if it's that people are just so close to it in the age we live in that they don't see it. That's why I was telling you before, I think it's so important to put out those videos so that people actually see it. But we don't want to get our accounts taken down. So we have a problem. It's like that people, I also think, by the way, that I go back and forth on the death penalty. I'm currently opposed to it, but I not by much. I also think people should see what an execution looks like. I think if you live in a democracy, these things have to be transparent. If you have a semi-public institution or what have you, and they're performing this procedure on children, I think people have a right to know what's going on in hospitals. Look, we can see, you can get videos on YouTube of people having, stents in their hearts and knee surgeries. Why would this be somehow different? Yeah.
No, I agree with you. It should be. OHSU is doing penile implants on your tax dollar. Some of them, these are 6-figure procedures on your tax dollar or covered by private insurance. Show the videos of what this is, where they take the skin off of somebody's arm
off the arm. Yeah,
it's horrific. It is like something out of Frankenstein.
All right. Hey, Reed, do we have any more time on that clip?
This process. And I feel for those kids and young adults. It's not just kids. So if we're going to go ahead with gender affirming treatment without fixing any of these underlying problems, or even researching these underlying problems, we're going to end up with more children and more young adults being harmed. And that's why this -11 is in place. It will require that detransitioners get the same health insurance coverage as transitioners. And I think it's the right thing to do.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I only think, not only do I think it is the right thing to do, that seems idiotic that you would even have to sit there and say that.
They were opposed to it. I know. I couldn't believe it either. They were opposed to it. They all voted no. I was told, Ed, don't bring this up. It is a very divisive issue. Why? Why is this a divisive issue? We know kids are being harmed. The one gentleman that testified, he had breast implants and was castrated at OHSU. And he was approved by this therapist who didn't know what the heck she was doing.
Yeah.
They approved him for anything.
Yeah.
Then he went back and said, hey, I made a mistake. I want these things removed.
I made a mistake.
A mistake.
A mistake is like when you drop your coffee cup. That wasn't a mistake.
So he ended up hiring a doctor and paid for it out of his own pocket to have the breast implants removed. He couldn't get general anesthesia. He couldn't afford that. So they did local anesthesia. So he was conscious when they pulled these out. I told that story, and it's later on in the thing there. And people were, the chair didn't believe me. He didn't believe me. But it's true. It did happen. And they wanted to go after the doctor, not the doctor that put these things in his chest. They wanted to go after the doctor that took him out. They were horrified by that doctor. But you know what? That's the only doctor that Frank had any respect for. That's the only doctor that he would go back to, because that doctor cared for him. But they were upset that, this should not have happened. Any doctor that would do this without general anesthesia should lose his license. No. That's the only doctor that cared for this young man.
Hey, let me ask you a question. I'm curious. Has anybody told you, or have you heard these exact words? You're on the wrong side of history.
I've heard. I haven't been told that, but we're on the right side on this.
Yeah.
I want my kids and grandkids to look back and go, I fought for this, fought for truth when it wasn't popular.
Yeah, that's interesting to me, because I'm constantly told that, but I'm told that by my friends, former friends, no longer friends, people who have defriended me in real life, not on Facebook. And I hear all the time, you're on the wrong side of history. And I wonder if, because maybe your friends are more red, more conservative leaning or Republican leaning or Christian leaning, you don't get that from them. Whereas, yeah, maybe.
Yeah, I'm not hearing that.
Okay, Reed. So, can you play the clip of him introducing the amendment and getting interrupted? It's about a minute.
So by Oregon's definition, gender identity can mean your gender-related identity or your appearance. And if your gender-related identity and appearance are opposites, just pick the meaning that helps your case. And that's exactly what DCBS did in this letter. As it relates to House Bill 2002B, the DCBS argument goes something like this.
Pause it, Reed.
The bill covers trans.
Look at the, can you see the flag right there? There's the trans flag and the US flag. And what is that one in the middle? I can't really see it.
That is the state of Oregon flag.
Yeah. And there's the other, oh my God, are they in all the desks? Are they in those two desks? Or is the trans?
Well, yeah, I sit, you can't see the empty chairs, Chair Nose, and he's gay. Representative Ben Bowman right behind me is gay. And I serve on the committees with them, but.
Yeah. So just on that note, I had a wonderful interview with Andrew Diehl, who's gay. And one of the things that he talked about and in that interview, it's an incredibly powerful interview. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it, is that this is the institutional castration of gay men. He gives the figures of the people who go on to be gay, and autistic too. Oh, Reed, can you play the rest of that clip? Sorry, Reed. Yeah.
Transitioning, because the person's gender identity, defined in this case as gender-related identity, is incongruent with their sex. And for a detransitioner, House Bill 2002B also covers that.
Representative, if you could please relate this to why you want this referred to rules at some point.
Because this contradicts with the legislative intent of the bill. There's total confusion here. It's not at all clear. This needs to go back to rules to be fixed.
Yeah, we were trying, we had several hours on the floor with this bill. We were trying to push it back to a committee to stop the floor vote, get it back to committee. And what happened, what I was responding to there is DCBS, because I got a lot of attention with that amendment, that -11 amendment. They came back the weekend before the floor vote and said, oh, hey, we looked at the bill and actually detransitioning is covered, which was exactly the opposite of what the legal counsel had told me. And it'd take a while to explain it, but that's what I was getting at. They based it on this gobbledygook definition of gender identity. It's one of those, where you define gender with the word gender.
Yeah.
It was just, and it could mean anything you want.
Yeah. So do you find this to be one of the more, or maybe the most, or I don't know, what degree of contentiousness is this in relation to other issues? Like, is this the most contentious issue? I mean, what do you think?
Yeah, this was probably the most contentious issue of the session, I would say. There's a lot of bills that we vote on, and they have quite a bit of bipartisan support. But when you get into, there's this issue, abortion and Second Amendment rights, those get very contentious. There's a lot of other things we disagree on, how to deal with the homeless situation or the drug epidemic or business-friendly climate in Oregon. We have disagreements, but those do not reach the level that.
Yeah, it's interesting because the homelessness, there's a telos, there's an end to that where people want everybody, even homeless people, the vast majority, I'm not saying all of them, but they have a common ground, a common goal, which is no homelessness. Drug addiction, the same thing. Second Amendment, less so, but trans, those positions seem fundamentally incompatible. They even seem incommensurable. Like you have some people who want care, surgery paid for by the state, pronouns, gender, and that's the other thing. Once it goes on the license, it's locked in. So then you go to facilities based upon it, rape crisis centers. So there's no, it's very hard to see what the common ground is unless you adopt a stance of kind of classical liberalism, and you want the stance to be anybody can do whatever they want once they're a certain age and they're afforded rights and what have you. Okay, I just want to move on. We have a couple of questions from people.
Sure.
All right, Reed, shoot the questions. I so appreciate both of you. Thanks a lot. This is from Danner Kondo. Hi, Danner. What can we do in Oregon to help? Always been a Dem, but can no longer support this new insanity. So I'll give that to you. How can people help what you're doing on this?
I have heard that a lot. I think that we need to be willing to speak out. We have to be able to speak up and speak out in school board meetings, and in any public setting on, if we're talking about this particular issue, on this issue, we have to be willing to do it. And that means, in part, I think, getting kind of educated on it, understanding it, reading some of the journalists. There's great journalists talking about this stuff, but I guess, for regular people, besides running for office, the other thing is look who you're voting for. If you're voting for, you can vote for a moderate Democrat in Oregon, but when it comes to bills like this, they toe the party line.
Right.
Even if they don't think it's right, even if they would never allow this to happen to their child, they still vote for it.
Yeah, and I just want to unpack a couple of things that you said. Reed, could you stick that question up there again, please? Colin Wright is excellent, and I think it's his wife now. Her Twitter name is Buttons, is good. Her articles are good. Abigail Schreier kind of wrote the definitive text on that. Helen Joyce is fantastic.
She's great. You did a great interview with her.
Thanks. I appreciate that.
Miriam Grossman has a new book out.
I haven't read that yet. Anything Andrew Doyle does is fantastic. So there are resources that people. Yeah. I'm also going to say two things on that. The most important thing, in my opinion, having been immersed in this space for so long, is that you have to understand the meanings of words. Like you just have to understand what gender-affirming care means. You have to understand what equity means. You have to. You cannot go, like, if you do nothing else, literally nothing else, figure out what woke people mean, or people whose cognitions have been captured by the ideology, by understanding what they mean when they use certain words. That is the first order of business. Then from there, if you want to dive in, you can read some of those sources in that literature. It's fantastic. I want to say one more thing to Danner's question. So you have to be willing to step across the aisle. Like you just have to be. If Ed is a Christian, I'm an atheist, that's completely irrelevant to anything. That literally matters zero. Like in fact, not only does it not matter, but it also should not matter. So if there's an injustice going on and somebody has different metaphysical beliefs than you, that's irrelevant. If you're not willing to step across the aisle and have some integrity and do what's right, you are part of the problem. So that's Danner's question. Yeah. All right. The Indian Jesus. I love this man. Hello, Indian Jesus. I'm going to be on the man is the real Indian Jesus. This man is not kidding around. Gender affirmation is breaking the Hippocratic Oath. And damn y'all, hit the like button for Dr. Boghossian. Yeah. Indian Jesus, I love you, man. Okay, Ed, what do you think about and I know you're not a physician, but it's breaking the Hippocratic Oath.
Well, you always hear first do no harm. You can't say that with the way we're handling gender affirming care.
Right.
We are doing
right.
If you're going to take that seriously, first do no harm, you're going to say, let's let this ride until this child's older. That would be the logical, reasonable, and the evidence says that that's the right thing to do too. That's the other thing.
Yeah. So that's, I'm glad you said that, because you had mentioned that before, and I didn't comment on it. So I am convinced at this point, this whole thing is morally motivated. It's anti-evidence. Not only is it a callous disregard for the evidence, it's actually flies in the face of all the evidence. And I think a great example of that is, when Reed and I go around the world and we talk about trans women and women's sports, for example. It doesn't matter what data you show people. It doesn't matter what statistics you show people. They think that trans women are women, period, and they should participate in women's sports independently of any physical reality. So it's not that it's data driven in that people formulate the beliefs on the basis. It's that their moral compass is first, and then they either have to make up the evidence in their own head, or they just disregard the evidence entirely. And I think it's the latter for the most part.
I think it is. I have not had anybody present to me, okay, give me some data that says that I'm wrong. Give me some data. I'm looking at data. I'm looking at the studies, and there's a lot of garbage studies out there too. But a lot of them are just.
I know. I wrote some of them.
Yes, you did. You know all about that. But they refer to authority too. A big problem we have is we have the AAP and the Endocrine Society, American Medical Association have all bought into this. The AMA, by the way, also says meritocracy is white supremacy.
Right. So that's part. So that, and I've been talking about that. That's part of the crisis of legitimacy in the institutions. Is that Mericy. I had a really interesting talk with Heather McDonald. I don't want to get too far afield, but her work from the Manhattan Institute is fascinating. She doesn't go into the trans stuff, but she's really interesting. And I constantly marvel again and again and again that and I'm not the only one, many people on the traditional left, and many people with whom in the previous culture where I just couldn't stand, like Glenn Greenwald, but I think more often than not, and he's more of a traditional, being on the traditional left, and he goes after, for example, identity politics with a vengeance. He goes after, and other people in the space. And I constantly marvel at the fact that the position that you are taking about this is considered to be right wing. I mean, that is, to me, that anybody who would even think that, you either know literally nothing about the subject, nothing, or you have a knee-jerk reaction. Oh, because Ed is a Republican, he supports this, I have to support the other thing.
Yeah, it bothers me too, because there's nothing right wing about this position.
Correct. There's nothing left wing about it either. It has no wings.
It's being human. It's logical, reasonable.
Yeah, I really do wonder.
Drive you to this position.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I really do wonder. If I hope I'm around long enough to see this, but I wonder, as you get older, the more you think, the likelihood of your own death is just around the corner, especially around your birthday. But I really, really wonder what percentage of people who quote unquote transitioned, which is not really transitioned, I wonder what percent of those will come to deeply regret that. And I wonder I don't know this, but my guess is that people, the younger you are, the more you'll regret it. But I don't know that. That's my speculation.
I don't know that. I do feel that a lot of them will regret it. Well, we know that a lot of them regret it, but I think there's more that don't choose to speak out, that are kind of ashamed. And I've heard this. They're ashamed of what they did. They take ownership of it, in part because they were involved in the decision.
Yeah,
they face It's heartbreaking.
It is. That's exactly the word. It's totally heartbreaking. Okay, Reed, I think Ed's been incredibly generous with his time. Yeah. And I just want to thank you again for having the courage to stand up. I know that, that wasn't a very popular thing that you did, but popular is not always right, and it's not always good. And I appreciate the fact that you did that.
Thank you, Peter. Yeah. I do have a question. I know we're out of time here.
No, go ahead, man. Anything.
I feel like society, we part of our liberalism is tolerance of other people.
Right.
It's like we've taken that to the extreme, to the point where we're no longer agreeing on objective truth anymore.
Correct.
You have your truth, my truth. That's like tolerance to the extreme. And I had a conversation with somebody that was, it reached a point I said, if somebody thinks they're a tree, are they a tree?
Right.
Well, if that's their truth. What about, is 2 + 2 equal to, what if I think 2 + 2 is equal to 5?
Yeah, that's another debate that James Lindsay and others have gotten. Hey, Reed, pull up the clip on YouTube of the man who lives as a goat. This is great. We're gonna spend a moment. If you have another minute, we're gonna spend a moment on this. But what was your question?
So I was just curious what your take is on that. That this is kind of a warped view of liberalism, where we're tolerant to the point of ignoring objective truth,
reality. Yeah. So
ignoring reality.
Yeah. So
in an effort to be tolerant for other people.
I'm gonna answer that question. I've answered that question. It's a great question. It's been asked before, but I'm going to answer that question in a rather unorthodox way by showing you this clip.
Okay.
This man wants to live and does live as a goat.
What I'm trying to do is to try and kind of get outside of myself and try and experience the world from a completely different perspective.
Oh my God.
And jointly to Thomas Waite for creating prosthetic extensions of his limbs.
What a Nobel Prize.
Okay, Reed.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, so I'm going to answer.
I own goats. Okay.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Full disclosure, yeah, but I'm.
Okay, so I'm going to answer your question like this. That man has every right to live like a goat, provided that the farmers are their property. He has every right to, if the man wants to be a goat, if the man wants to pretend he's a goat, if the man wants to use goat pronouns, he is entirely welcome in this country. I know that's a good question, Pine Creek. I don't know the answer to that. Of course, I don't know the answer to that. But with all of that said, and the liberty that he has to be a goat, to be a goat, that doesn't mean that I am forced to acknowledge him as a goat. That doesn't mean that I am forced to use goat pronouns. That does not mean that the state should force me to, I don't even know what a goat's bad. That's sheep. I don't even know what goats do. Bleat or something. Is that what a goat does? Goat self. Yeah. Yes. Goat and goat self. So I think that's the way to think about it, is you have the cognitive liberty to kind of, you could pretend you're Superman. I used to pretend I was all kinds of superheroes when I was a kid. That's just normal. The line comes when you ask other people to participate in your delusions.
Yeah.
But if the guy wants to live as a goat, hey, go knock yourself out. You can live. Best of luck to you, man. Just get permission from the guy's field you're on, and then you can live as a goat. That's great. I don't worry about anybody blowing stuff up if they're a goat or raping anybody. Maybe other goats, but I'm really not concerned with that. I don't know. Okay, cool. Well, good. Well, thanks, Ed. I appreciate it, and thank you again,
Peter. I really
Reed.
appreciate it. Yeah.
Yep. Okay. All right. Stay on for a second, and Reed is going to cut us off. Thanks again.
You bet. Bye-bye.